So I'm going to clear up some of the grasses and weeds that are around these potato plants as I chit chat and tell you a little, I don't know, some things that I've been thinking about. So I was thinking last night, actually, what is the most valuable thing that we could give our kids? And I don't think it's money. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's knowledge. And one of the things that I feel like we really missed out on, or at least I missed out on, is this ability to grow our own food. The knowledge of growing food, storing food, curing food, harvesting food, saving the seeds, all of it. Ironically enough, both of my parents grew up in farm settings. My mom grew up on a dairy farm, and my dad, his upbringing was a little bit different. I think we would call it permaculture right now. He grew up in very, I'm going to call it the bush, Africa, very rural countryside in Kenya. And so they grew almost everything they ate. And, you know, the coffee tree was next to the guava tree, which was shade to the, what do they call them in English? Collards. You know, and they did so much of, they grew so much of their own food. And growing up, I never really heard anything. Ooh, a slug. Oh, that probably came off of the potatoes. They can get really sluggy if they're really moist, and it has rained quite a bit over the last couple days. Anyways, I know very little about gardening for somebody who is the granddaughter of farmers and the daughter of children who grew up on farms. And what a gift to be able to give your kids, to teach them how to grow their own food. We have become so distant from our food. You know, you ask kids where chicken comes from and they'll say McDonald's. You know, there's just this detachment from reality, and the reality is that we don't know really how to survive. Most of us couldn't survive if we depended on growing our own stuff. And for me, it's such an important thing to be able to teach my kids, you know, what some of these things even look like, what a French fry looks like before it is a French fry. So that's one of my missions in this life anyways, is to teach them. Now I did, now what little I do know definitely comes from my dad. That was one thing that he really insisted on keeping when we were growing up, and that was a garden, whether it was a backyard garden or, you know, a garden on some of the farmland out in the country. He was really insistent on doing that, and I think for him it brought a lot of comfort and a lot of of being home. But also, this is a man who never had food from a refrigerator or a freezer or a box or a plastic bag until he was probably my age, in his 30s, maybe 20s, when he came to the United States. Never. I mean, it's wild to even think, for me anyways, to never have a leftover, never have something in the refrigerator, nothing in the freezer. He never shopped at a grocery store. They grew almost all of their food, and what they couldn't grow, they would go daily daily to the market and get. They stored all of their own grain. They treated all of their own well water. They dug their own wells. And so, you know, there's some monotony that comes with eating seasonally, growing your own food. And, you know, maybe that's one of the pleasures that we get to enjoy. But for the most part, I find it fascinating, absolutely fascinating, that they ate what they grew. They ate what their neighbors grew. And when I say neighbors, I'm not talking about driving 45 minutes south to the nearest farm. I am talking about their neighbors' 10-minute walk down the trail. So I think it is one of the coolest things that human beings So I think it is one of the coolest things that human beings were ever able to develop, and that's agriculture. To be able to feed ourselves, to be able to grow food. I keep saying it, but I think it is just, it's mind-boggling. And to be so close to somebody who was able to do that less than 30 years ago, and even before my grandma passed away, that's what they did. They grew their own food. She still lived in the rural parts of Kenya where my dad grew up, and I don't know, when she came here, it's ironic, right? We think we have everything that you could ever need, and we do in the United States, and yet this woman, after she came here and ate our food, she was so happy to get home and eat something that was fresh. You know, she came here over the winter. She came from October to April, which is probably one of the worst times to come to a northern state. And yeah, we eat a lot of boxed stuff. We eat a lot of preserved stuff, a lot of canned stuff. And I would just love to, if that stuff is going to be canned, and if it's going to be jarred, and if it's going to be frozen, I really want that stuff to be stuff we grew with our own hands. There's just something about, that process that reminds us of how fragile we are, but how human we are. And I think even though it's not a simple task, the concept is fairly simple. And I think the more simplicity I bring into my life anyways, the happier I become. So I really do want to sit down and chat and pick my dad's brain, because I did see him every season, you know, working that dirt, and yes, working that dirt and really because every season I really did see him working that dirt and planting those seeds and tending to everything, because when he grew up, if you didn't do that, you didn't eat. And it's a really interesting concept to me, because we're so inundated with food here, and there's other places that still do that. They still depend on their hands and feet to do the work so that they and their families can eat in the future. So anyways, so that is my thought, you know, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a night. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for the rest of his life. And that's what I want to give to my kids. And even though I am not a proficient gardener, I am learning. We are so blessed to live in the age that we do with the internet, and we can look things up. We have resources like the Facebook groups and books, and it's such a good time to be alive, especially if you're interested in homesteading, because we have so many resources. And so that's my goal: simplify my life, grow food for my kids, and teach them how to do it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.